Science understands what life does, but not what life is at the fundamental scale, just as science understands what gravity does, but not what gravity is at the fundamental scale. The same with consciousness, which is still referred to as the hard problem of science. In fact, many scientists now believe that consciousness is not produced by the brain, which means it is not the emergent property of the brain, but a fundamental aspect of all realities. The technology inside of us is far more complex than any technology outside of us that we know of, because the technology inside of us was not designed nor engineered. It evolved through random mutations and natural selections, through trials and errors. 2017 study in the US revealed that 60% of all heart attacks happened in people with normal or low levels of cholesterol. A Swedish study on 45,000 samples conducted through a period of 3 decades has now concluded that individuals who lived to be 100 years old or more had higher levels of total cholesterol compared to their shorter lived peers. Health undoubtedly is the most precious thing in the world, yet health science still continues to be the most misunderstood and the least successful of all sciences. This is because life and consciousness, which are crucial for understanding health and biology, still remain as two of the top 10 unsolved mysteries of science. Science understands what life does, but not what life is at the fundamental scale, just as science understands what gravity does, but not what gravity is at the fundamental scale. The same with consciousness, which is still referred to as the hard problem of science. In fact, many scientists now believe that consciousness is not produced by the brain, which means it is not the emergent property of the brain, but a fundamental aspect of all realities. The most famous American anesthesiologist, Stuart Hameroff, who has been doing research on consciousness for the last 50 years, was recently asked what is consciousness. He replied, it is what goes out when anesthesia goes in and returns when anesthetics wears out. The technology inside of us is far more complex than any technology outside of us that we know of, because the technology inside of us was not designed nor engineered. It evolved through random mutations and natural selections, through trials and errors. Life is the oldest living artifact on earth because genetic information got transmitted through millions upon millions of years. As a result, biology still remains as a riddle to biologists. The more we understand it, the more we discover how less we understand it. To cite but just one example of a profound mystery about biology is the fact that human body replaces about 98% of all the atoms in 1 year. We make a new liver every 2 months. We make a new skin every month. In less than a year, we replace our entire body down to the last atom. The bones and skeletons, which seem so solid and permanent, are dissolving and reforming, replacing the calcium and phosphorus atoms with which they are built. This is not science fiction, this is science fact based on experimental physics through which they can track the movement of atoms in and out of our body, through radio detectors. This means that there is an invisible hardware. There is an invisible software that controls this hardware. This means that there is an inbuilt program inaccessible by science, inscrutable to human minds. Our technology and pharmacology are excellent for acute diseases, infectious diseases, surgeries, heart attacks, accidents, trauma care, X-rays, endoscopies, and so on, but not for chronic conditions such as cancer, kidney failure, coronary artery diseases, blood sugar, blood pressure, blood cholesterol, asthma, allergy, osteoarthritis, autoimmune diseases, idiopathic conditions, which continue to be the #1 killer in the world, which account for 90% of hospital visits today, which account for 80% of death in the world today, which means 8 out of 10 die today, not becoming old, but becoming sick, with one or the other chronic illnesses becoming acute in the end, unable to be cured or corrected. Because conventional medicine still doesn't have any cure, it only has controls. America spends $5 trillion on healthcare, which is 20% of its GDP, which is the highest by any nation in the world. Yet it is 32nd in the World Health Index. India is the birthplace of Ayurveda, humanity's most ancient text on life. We called ourselves as the pharmacy of the world, but we are 122nd in the World Health Index. India is now referred to as the heart disease capital of the world. Indian cancer deaths are the second highest in the world, while global death rate from cancer is on the decline. In many countries, in India, it is in the reverse. One of the reasons for this is that human greed has replaced human need. Values have been replaced by valuables. Healthcare has become a cash cow. We have begun to fish in troubled waters. Indian yogas, as an American physician said, are good aerobic exercises. Yogas originally are intended to achieve nirvana or enlightenment. Indian meditation centers, meditation retreats are more and more revenue centered and less remedies oriented. Meditation essentially, meditation originally, if done in the right way, understanding the science behind it, is an excellent metabolic reset on the science of which I myself wrote an article in the newspaper a decade ago, on the science of which the famous neuroscientist and author Sam Harris has an online meditation app curiously titled as Spirituality Without Religion, because he is an atheist. He is a card-carrying hardcore atheist, yet he believes that meditation works, yet he believes that it produces it has therapeutic values. With industrialization of molecular biology and conversion of healthcare into health industry, there are now pills for every ills. As a consequence, iatrogenesis has now become the third largest killer in the world, which are medicine-induced, hospital-acquired, doctors-derived. This is because all medicines are enzymatic inhibitors, which means they reduce our enzyme activities, which is perfectly all right when absolutely essential, but excessive use of them is detrimental to health, because most of the biochemical reactions in our body are catalyzed only through enzymes, and this is why enzymes are called the work horses of our cells. 65% of the current chronic illnesses are now said to be psychogenic. Only 35% are attributable to or organic, which means only 35% of the current chronic illnesses are caused by incorrect food, inappropriate diet, industrialized food. environmental toxins, etc. But 65% of the current chronic illnesses are said to be psychogenic, which means they are psychosocial factors driven, which means how you think, how you feel, how you emote, how you react, how you reflect, how you believe, how you behave. All of them produce metabolites, and the metabolites become the determinants of your various gene expressions. Expression of gene is expression of cell. Expression of cell is expression of life into wellness, into illness. But controlling one's thoughts, feelings, and emotions, reactions, is easier said than done, because it is self generated, because it is system generated. We are on autopilot. We don't have a free will according to cognitive neuroscience. We are a product of and a process by our body chemicals. As someone said, we are not living our life is being lived. This is where Jiddu Krishnamurti's famous quote becomes relevant. He said, the highest form of intelligence is the ability to observe oneself without judging oneself. Good wives, positive wives are important for good health. Let me give you some examples here. There was an experiment conducted on rabbits to study cholesterol metabolism. The experimenters, in one set of experiment, took the rabbits out of the cage, put them on the lap, kissed them, hugged them, cuddled them, and then fed them with the cholesterol-rich food. And in the other experiment, the rabbits were frightened of, frowned upon, and then the cholesterol-rich food was thrown inside the cage. The plaque build-up, the cholesterol deposit in the first set of rabbits was much less compared to the second one. This experiment revealed that the organism's psychological state, psychological makeup determines the metabolic pathways, the metabolic matrix, which is important, which determines the gene expressions, because metabolites are the determinants of our various gene expressions. There was another experiment conducted on diabetics to study sugar metabolism. Different diabetics of similar diabetic conditions were selected, and they were fed with the hyperglycemic food, but they produced different varying results, because no two individuals are alike in their traits, in their taste, in their temperament. Therefore, in short, if I am to reduce health to a one-liner, if I am to make an oversimplification of health, human health is the metabolic end product of what you take into your body and what you take into your mind, as well as these days what you are exposed to as native and non-native EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, what you take into your body are the various foods that you eat, what you take into your mind are thoughts, feelings, emotions, reactions, reflections, what you're exposed to as non-native EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, or the man-made electromagnetic frequencies, which are everywhere and in everything, in many things that we are surrounded by. It is in the mobile phones, it is in the mobile screens, it is in the computer screens, it is in the TV screens. It is in the Bluetooth, it is in the blue lights which are everywhere, it is in the Wi-Fi's, it is in the 4Gs, in the 5Gs. Indiscriminate exposure to them is inimical to health. DNA damage by ionizing radiation is a silent killer in the modern world. The classic example is the death of Marie Curie, the Nobel laureate. Marie Curie discovered radium and polonium, for which she was awarded Nobel Prize. But she died of radiation exposure to the very elements that she discovered and got Nobel Prize for. She was the one who coined the phrase radioactivity. She was the one who developed radiation therapy for cancer, yet she died of radiation exposure. Such is the level of difficulty to detect atomic properties that are floating around us undetected, unnoticed. There were many studies recently that have confirmed that radiation therapy and chemotherapy kill NK cells. NK cells are called natural killer cells. They are our innate immunity. They are our first line defense, which is being depleted through high energy radiation. We are exposed to ionizing radiation in numerous other ways in the modern world. This is why someone said recently, quite relevantly, that people get sick for two reasons and two reasons only. Either their body is missing something that the body needs so badly as essential nutrient, or their body is exposed to something that the body should not be in the form of toxins. If you can replete the body with the missing essential nutrient and rid the body of the toxin it is exposed to, the body will heal itself. Medicines don't heal patients. Doctors don't heal patients. Body heals itself. It is a miraculous machine. Many things that we believed for many years as gospel of truth about health have now turned out to be myth of health. Let me just bust some of the myth about health. A 2017 study in the US revealed that 60% of all heart attacks happened in people with normal or low levels of cholesterol. A Swedish study on 45,000 samples conducted through a period of 3 decades has now concluded that individuals who lived to be 100 years old or more had higher levels of total cholesterol compared to their shorter lived peers. What is all the more strange is the discovery about cholesterol, which is now referred to as the molecule of life. It is found to be an essential component for the structure and function of cell membrane, which means it is an essential component for cell integrity, despite its association with heart disease when the levels are so highly elevated. Genetic determinism, the belief that genes determine diseases, is now increasingly being discredited by many experts for a number of reasons. Gene-centric biology was oversold. HCN gene, let me cite some of the examples here. HCN gene is said to be responsible for cardiac arrhythmia, which cause cardiovascular illnesses. Dr. Dennis Noble, the man who developed the first computational mathematical model of a cardiac cell for study, edited HCN gene, but it has not changed the HRV, the heart rate variability. 50% of women have BRCA1 gene in their bodies, but not even 1% of women have clinical breast cancer. Sometime back, many African sex workers were tested HIV positive, but shockingly, most of them did not have clinical AIDS. All this is because genes are information, genes are data. They cannot self-actualize. They have no causal powers. They are not the causative agents of illness. Gene does not equal disease. Infectivity is not pathogenicity. Dr. D. Nornish, an American clinical professor of medicine, altered expressions of hundreds of genes to promote health and prevent illnesses through a comprehensive program of diet and lifestyle changes. He has beneficially altered expressions of over 500 genes without changing the fundamental DNA sequence. He has successfully upregulated many good genes and downregulated many bad genes through his program, a comprehensive program of diet and lifestyle changes. His study was published back in 2008 in the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, a prestigious peer-reviewed medical journal in the US. This field is now known as epigenetics, which means factors outside of cells can influence expressions inside the cell nucleus. In spite of all this all these biological paradoxes, our tech CEOs, tech tycoons talk about biological immortality, transhumanism, and terraforming of Mars for human habitation. Their biological immortality is inspired or was inspired by the discovery of a jellyfish that can repeat its life cycle when it becomes old or ill. It can restart its life cycle when it becomes old or ill. It can revert back to a younger version of itself through a process called transdifferentiation, making it biologically immortal. But the technology inside living systems was not designed, was not engineered. It evolved through random mutations and natural selections, through millions upon millions of years, which cannot be copycatted, which cannot be cut and pasted. If a crocodile can hold its breath for 2 hours underwater to catch its prey, then the crocodile is anatomically designed, evolutionarily designed for such an act. Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, who is the proponent of transhumanism. Tomorrow he will say that they will install more TP53 genes in our bodies, which will eliminate cancer. TP53 gene is a cancer suppressor gene, the cancer preventing gene, which we humans have only one copy of it in our body, while elephants have 20. Elephants are said to have 20 TP53s in their bodies, which perhaps is the reason why elephants don't have cancer. Tech tycoons these days make tall talks. Elon Musk talked about sending 1 million men to Mars in the next 25 years. Mars is 55 million miles away from Earth. Mars doesn't have liquid water. Mars doesn't have breathable air. Mars doesn't have plants to produce oxygen. There is no carbon cycle, the O2, CO2, the oxygen carbon dioxide cycle, which is the quintessence of life support on Earth. Everything in the Mars has to be manufactured or recycled, yet he made this pronouncement, which was debunked by many experts. Musk seems to have been moved by the movie The Martian, which was an excellent entertainment, but terrible physics according to astrophysicists. Musk recently cited someone and said that the Earth is our cradle and the baby should not remain in the cradle forever, which means we should all become flying saucers.